Good day, everyone, and welcome to the 19th edition of the group exhibit Fuel Cell and Hydrogen here at the HANNOVER MESSE. I invite you to come and have a seat, drink some on the house, and we have a very exciting conversation coming up. My name is Marie-Hélène, but I'm really happy today that we'll be discussing the commercialization of fuel cell electric vehicles. Please help me welcome from Fuel Cell Today, market analyst Jonathan Wing. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, I think before we get into fun questions, let's just go with a standard introduction to who Fuel Cell Today is.
Sure. So we're a group of 3 market analysts who work in the UK, just about an hour north of London. We cover all aspects of the global fuel cell industry, so cars, stationary, portable, and now electrolyzers as well. We've been running for 10 years, and 3 of us who work at Fuel Cell Today presently have been around for 2 to 2.5 years. And what I've come to speak about today is the car side, because this show's quite often dominated by stationary applications and now electrolyzers. So I just wanted to represent the car side a bit, really.
Yeah, we haven't seen much of them at this show or this year, but they were really present in the past. So we would like to know, where are they at now, and where can we see them in the next couple of years?
Well, there's about 10 outside.
Well, there's cars in presentation, but I mean, we haven't really seen them as part of demonstration inside.
No. And the cars outside, they're from about 2008, 2009, and they are demonstration vehicles. But I would invite all of you to go and have a drive of one. You can do that for free outside to experience how the cars work, really. They are really nice to drive. Very nice indeed.
There's a very small, I've tried one 2 years ago, and you actually can't feel that you're in a different car. It actually has a little bit more boost to it even.
Yeah, quite a lot of low-end torque. It's quite nice.
There was a big announcement done a couple of years ago where we heard over and over again that 2015 was going to be the year where we will see a fuel cell electric vehicle available and commercialized. Is that happening?
It is, yeah. I can see why people might doubt it, because it does sound like a date that's kind of just been plucked out of the air, but they're sticking to it. And in fact, we're seeing a few cars launching earlier than that. So Hyundai has just begun manufacturing of its iX35 fuel cell car in February. And it plans to make 1,000 of them available before 2015, and then based on demand, quite a significant amount more than that from 2015 onwards.
So that's for Hyundai. They're already started. What about the European automakers like Daimler?
Okay, so Daimler had originally said that they were going to launch a car next year, which would have been the B-Class F-Cell, which is over there.
Just behind us, actually, on display, yes?
Yeah, on display. What they've decided to do instead, rather than launch a limited production run of that car, which would have been very expensive and it would have been difficult to sell, really, in 2014, because, as we've heard, there's only 15 stations in Germany right now. By 2015, there should be 50. So what they're doing is they're collaborating with Ford and with Nissan on creating a lower cost fuel cell system that the car can run on to launch into a vehicle from 2017, which is when they had said they would do a full production run as it is. So they're just kind of missing out one step.
So rather than issuing 1 or 2 vehicles for people to see in a very small niche market, they're saying, let's concentrate our efforts to reducing the cost, and when we will release in 2017, there'll be a broader portion of the population that can afford them.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. And there'll be more places where people can fill up their cars, because we're seeing quite a few hydrogen infrastructure projects launching now. Yesterday, on the EU Infrastructure Day, they were talking about some possible EU legislation that will mandate stations, which would be great, because you've kind of got to get over this, I don't want to call it a valley of death, because it's not really, but when you first launch these stations, the utilization is going to be low, because there aren't really going to be people who have the cars, and then that doesn't make it particularly attractive to the people who are building the stations, because they're not going to make any money on it. So what we're starting to see now are some more centralized efforts to provide funding to get stations on the ground and bypass that stage to get it to a stage where they can start to break even and maybe make money on this. Klaus Bonhoff has said that selling renewably generated hydrogen can be a profitable business once you get over that stage.
Yeah, and actually, I had a discussion earlier this week with NOW, and they're putting quite a few penny towards those 50 fuel cell stations from Germany. So hopefully that will help things come along. But if we go back a little bit here, there was the announcement in January that Daimler will work with Renault and Nissan. What do you think this announcement will have? Like, what impact will it have on the overall collaboration or car commercialization here in Europe?
Okay, well, Daimler had already been working with Ford since 2009, using the automotive business that was spun off from Ballard in a collaboration in Canada. And what Nissan's doing by joining it, they're bringing some quite low-cost technology, well, what they claim are low-cost technologies to that partnership. They announced in 2011 that they'd developed a stack that was 6 times cheaper than the stack they'd used in 2005, so significant cost reductions. And if the 3 companies together can get these cost reductions and further developments and reduced platinum loadings into a new stack for 2017, then that will help out all 3 of them because they'll be able to sell cheaper cars.
Maybe standardize a little bit some of the components as well and share that knowledge base, which again would end up reducing cost. So we've covered Daimler,
Yep.
we've covered Nissan, we've covered Hyundai, but we said by 2015 it should be across everybody. There's still quite a few automakers left. Why don't you fill us in on a couple more and what activity you've seen through your research?
Okay, so an important market to consider outside of Europe is Japan. And there were 7 automakers who signed this letter of understanding in 2009, saying that they would have vehicles out by 2015. As it transpires, I mean, we've had the economic crisis, everything else. 4 of them will still have these cars out by 2015, and the remaining 3 sometime between 2015 and 2020. So one of those 4 is Hyundai, and the other 3 are Nissan, Toyota, and Honda, who are the 3 Japanese automakers. And there's a big drive in that country to, I mean, they love their cars, and they're also worried about their energy security, particularly after what happened with the Fukushima accident. They were already before that, I think, 90% dependent on imported fuels. So they really want to try and move to a situation where they can be a bit more independent, and fuel cell cars could help them do that. They've committed to build 100 stations across the 4 main metropolitan areas. Refueling stations, yeah. In Tokyo, Nagoya, Fukuoka, and the 4th is escaping me. But in the 4 main metropolitan areas by 2015. And the 3 Japanese automakers will definitely be launching cars in that year as well. We don't know how many, and we don't necessarily know what form they will take yet. Though it's likely to be kind of these luxury sedan-style cars. And Toyota has an early indication of what that might look like with its FCVR prototype that's been doing the rounds in the last year or so. That's not the one that will go on sale, but it's been done to give an idea of the direction they're heading in.
So Toyota's been giving an idea. The other ones haven't really released anything.
Not yet, no.
So we're not sure, but they are though committed by 2015.
Yeah, and
They've
I think
said
we'll
that.
see in the next year, really, we'll see a lot more information on what it is they're planning to bring to market and how they're planning to do that. Toyota, for example, they've said they should be giving a proper preview of the car they'll be commercializing by the end of next year.
And coming back, you were saying that there was 100 few refueling station planned to arrive in Japan. So they really will have the infrastructure. But behind the infrastructure, there's always the question about safety. One of the regulations, for instance, I've read on for Japan is they're going to set an 8-meter setback from the refueling station. And knowing that Japan is a really tight country with a lot of people, is this going to be a hurdle?
It is and it isn't. They're working very hard, and this isn't just in Japan, this is globally. People are working really hard to get some proper legislation in place, some proper standards that define more sensible setback distances. One way that you can reduce these setback distances is if you install blast fencing around the stations. And one small positive development in Japan is that they can now, with their latest standard, they can put hydrogen pumps into existing stations rather than having to create a whole new station. So that brings down the capital cost somewhat. And there's also a subsidy launching this year that will cover up to 50% of the capital cost of the station as an incentive for these 100 to be built. And they've got around 20 at the moment. JX Nippon has committed to build 40, and Iwatani has committed to build another 20. So that's already 60 that are definitely happening. So 2015, it sounds kind of like, it sounds just pulled out of the air, but it is real, and people are committed.
Committed, and the infrastructure will be there. But do you think, I just saw here at the fair this year for the first time, there's Sella Energy that comes up with a totally different fuel for hydrogen in the form of a pellet, and basically says we have solved the problem of safety with the hydrogen refueling station. Do you think this is going to throw a curveball at the overall refueling station installation and the industry in general?
Definitely not in the short term. I think it is a very interesting technology, but I think the safety hurdle is already overcome. It is safe, and everyone who's been developing these technologies has been so up against it when it comes to safety that these things are unbelievably safe. I mean, no one at the moment considers the fact that they're driving around on top of a little plastic box of flammable liquid. And the hydrogen tanks that have been developed, they're extremely strong. We saw in Japan last month that a company has developed a hydrogen tank that you can fire a bullet at, and the bullet will just kind of sink in, the gas will escape. It's not going to blow up. Same in a crash. The gas is gone before a fire can even start. So it is safe. So
safety is not an issue, even though it's some time to talk.
Just public perception of safety.
So we got to convince people yet.
Yeah, there's a lot of outreach to be done and a lot of education. It is quite different from what we've got at the moment.
Yeah. And you had mentioned Toyota gave us kind of a preview of one of the cars they'll be maybe releasing.
Yeah.
Toyota is really present in North America, so why don't we go over the big pond and see what's going on over there?
Yeah, so the Americans love their cars. That's a given. And it's going to be slightly more difficult over there because of the vastness of the country. People need to go really long distances. You're going to need to have a lot of infrastructure in place before people will be willing to buy the cars. Luckily, though, there's a few things that are pushing that along. There's a lot of activity in California. They have very strict air quality standards. They are also saying that fuel suppliers must be zero-emission vehicle ready. They're bringing in legislation whereby once a certain tipping point of zero-emission vehicle owners is reached, the fuel suppliers are obliged to provide infrastructure, which I think is quite good.
And they're not the only state doing that, though. Some states are following California, aren't they?
States can... The way it's set up is that the California Air Resources Board, who dictates all of this, was established before the federal laws on air were established. And as such, states outside of California can either choose the Californian standards or the federal standards. And the Californian ones are a lot tighter, a lot more progressive. And I think it's anywhere up to 10 other states follow the Californian ones. So it's quite a big market that can be created there. Toyota will probably release a car there. As for American
what about the other three, though? What about the big three?
So the big three American automakers all suffered quite a lot of financial trouble a few years ago. And I think in a lot of ways they're still recovering from that. Just before the automotive crash happened, General Motors had done a very big fuel cell car demonstration in America called Project Driveway. That was the biggest fuel cell car demonstration ever at the time. They are still planning to produce a car, as are Ford, who earlier we said were involved in this partnership with Daimler and Nissan. But they're a lot more cagey about saying when, because it's generally expected that the cars that come out in 2015, they're not going to be money makers. They're going to be covering the production costs at most. They're trying to create a market, and I don't think General Motors or Ford are in a financial position to
take that hit
just yet.
Or that big investment.
They would rather let people who are more they know that other people will be doing that already, and they're going to let them do that and then join in. So.
Well, unfortunately, we're running out of time.
Okay.
But before I let you go, I'd like to mention you've wrote a report, Fuel Cell Electric Vehicles, The Road Ahead. And I invite people to take a copy. Some of your colleagues, Marge and Dan, have copies in hand. If you wish to have one, it's a really good report, worth reading. And I would like the audience to help me thank you for this great interview. It was quite nice to have this chat.
Thank you very much. If you've got any questions.
Yeah, and they do not have a booth, but they're available for question, both Dan, Marge, and Jonathan, if you have any questions and further discussion. So please join them off stage.